What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 154.
154.
Monday, February 17th, 2025. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Monday. Busy time of year, lots of sports. We're going to talk about it all. Football news. Kevin Wilson back in Norman, Oklahoma. We're going to talk about it. What does it mean? Do we like it? Do we hate it? We'll discuss. Position status report series continuing. Got some other NFL stuff for you guys to talk about as well. We'll hit all the latest men's hoops, women's hoops, baseball, softball, some really good, some not so good. We'll talk about it all on the program today. A busy, busy Monday as it is this time of year, February, March. A lot of sports, and we're going to talk about it all here on the program today. But guys, let's start with the news out of the football world, which I mentioned a second ago. Kevin Wilson is back. This was something that was highly speculated whenever Kevin was let go, obviously, as the head coach at Tulsa. Obviously, Kevin was the OC at Oklahoma in the mid to late 2000s when, of course, Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator. He was the OC when Oklahoma went to the national championship game, led by Sam Bradford. They had those insanely prolific offenses. He was so good, he got a Big Ten head coaching job at Indiana, and he was there for a while, and then was the OC at Ohio State, and most recently the head coach at Tulsa. He's coming back as an analyst, which, again, when you got a young OC like Ben Arbuckle, we've talked about it, he's pretty, raw. I mean, he's still new at this. He hasn't been a primary play caller for that long. It seems like bringing the old wily vet Kevin Wilson in with Brent Venables, who obviously they know each other very well, seems like a pretty logical thing. Reaction for you guys here is Kevin Wilson, another old face back in Norman coming up this season.
Yeah, like you said, this was kind of speculated and, heard some murmurs of it back in December when, Kevin was let go at Tulsa and Oklahoma was obviously kind of overhauling things on the offensive side. I like it. I think it's, like you said, wily veteran, guy who's a very accomplished play caller, good sounding board, I think, for Ben Arbuckle. And you needed to fill that role. Obviously, Kevin Johns left for Oklahoma State, so you had an analyst spot open. Not that there's any really limits on there, but I just think it's a good sounding board and a good kind of tool for Ben Arbuckle to have there, especially because when you look at it, he's got 9 years of experience working alongside Brent Venables. So it's not just his offensive acumen, but he's a guy who knows kind of what you need to do to complement Brent Venables' defense. And look, I'm not saying that he's going to have an outsized say in the offense by any means, but I think he is a useful, just another tool in the toolbox there for Ben Arbuckle to kind of work with, to take some advice from, maybe just feel his way around when, like you said, he's still a very young play caller. He's had a rapid rise in the industry, but he's a guy that's still up and coming and can use some, veteran sounding boards like that.
It's a move that I absolutely love. Like, you get a guy that actually cares about the program. You've seen him in the past, been here and done really good things. And I mean, he's always talked well about Oklahoma. Even when he went out to Tulsa, I think it was 2 years ago, and OU played him, and he talked about it. So, I mean, this is a guy that you really want, like you guys said, with Ben Arbuckle on there. He can come take advice from him because he has all the wisdom of the things like that Ben Arbuckle can kind of put his new pizzazz on when he runs his offense and things like that. So I think it's a really good move for OU, especially as an analyst position. You get him in there, you get a smart mind that knows what he's doing and can focus on one thing instead of trying to be a head coach and really do really well at that. So it makes all the perfect sense for me. So I really like this move from OU.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time ever hating too much on an analyst hire, right? I mean, they just feel like bonus additions to the staff, and you get a guy who's been an OC at the major college level at OU for a long time, and then was a head coach, for a long time. And Brent is still, it's year 4 now, so he's not like he's brand new, but it's still like, having another guy who's been a head coach can't hurt, right? And you kind of look at what they did on the defensive side with Wes Goodwin, kind of similar. It's like, it just helps. I don't know what the counter argument really be to doing this now. If I don't know if it was ever seriously considered, but it was thrown out there by some fans and stuff, as the OC hire. I don't know if I would have loved that, but as an analyst, again, I have a hard time really having much negative to say about this. It just kind of makes a lot of sense for all parties. I'm sure for Kevin, it's probably in his mind a 1-year thing before he gets another OC job somewhere else, or maybe even another head coaching job. Who knows? It just kind of makes sense for everyone. And obviously when those two guys were together, Norman, it went well. So why not? Why not? The only knock on it, and it's not really even a knock, is that obviously OU fans have kind of grown weary of this bringing people back thing because it hasn't worked a couple times. But again, it's just as an analyst, he's been at OU, he's been successful. I don't have much negative to say about it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Any other thoughts on that? I mean, it makes sense.
I mean, I'm not so like adamant on like not bringing guys back. I mean, it kind of makes sense in the like you want somebody that's not going to try to use your program as a springboard to go elsewhere. Like, typically when you bring a guy back, he cares about the program and he wants to do well there for the program. So I kind of think that's the way maybe Joe C's looking at it as well. Like, it seems like that makes sense to me, but I guess I have to research that a little bit more to see what's going on there.
Yeah. The only way I could see this as like any fans being like a little turned off about it is because like you're just trying to cut the ties from the Seth Luttrell fiasco, and now you have a guy who Seth Luttrell was one of his OCs at Indiana, was he not? It's like I get it. It's all part of the same coaching tree. These guys have all worked together in some capacity over the last 25 years. And like I said, I think it's a good addition. Like similar to you, I'm never really going to knock an analyst hire because I just think it's, another voice, another, again, a sounding board, not to sound repetitive, but I just think it's, if I were a fan and I was like nitpicking it for any reason, it would be like, oh man, more of the Seth Luttrell ties there. But like this is Ben Arbuckle's offense. He's going to be the one leading the charge at the end of the day. It's just giving him the tools necessary to succeed like he has so far early in his career. And obviously you got that with, bringing John Mateer in. You got, John Kosieski. How do you pronounce it? Sorry.
Yeah,
I never even tried.
Yes, exactly. I was about to say that.
Yeah. But like, you're surrounding him with what he feels he needs to be successful at this level. So
no doubt. Those late 2000s Kevin Wilson's offenses were awesome. 2008, I mean, Sam Bradford obviously won the Heisman, and those offenses put up 50, 60 points. Different college football, obviously, different 20 years ago almost, but, can't hurt. Mm-hmm. So Kevin Wilson back in Norman alongside Brent Venables. Kind of cool, too. They just kind of get the band back together a little bit. Bob Stoops, he sheds a tear. All right, so let's continue our position stats report series. So we've been doing this. If you've been with us, we go through one at a time. We're on the defensive side of the football. We did defensive tackles last week. Let's do defensive ends today. Kick it outside on that defensive line. Miguel Chavis's group feels like this position has kind of been this, of all of them, one of the ones that's just like steadily improved each year. They continue to add talent to that group. Now they're replacing a lot. Ethan Downs, obviously a big part of this team the last several years, is off to the NFL. Caden Woolard also did some nice things as a veteran addition. Trace Ford had a great year last year, also moves on. But you bring back our Mason Thomas, one of the big wins of the offseason. You also added Marvin Jones Jr. from Florida State. And then after that, it's can some of these young guys step up and be what we hope they would be? Obviously, most namely, PJ Adebawore goes into year 3. For you guys, thoughts on this defensive end room where it feels like it's really, really strong at the top with our Mason Thomas and Marvin Jones Jr., and then it could be really, really good after that, but you guys are going to have to prove it.
Yeah. Again, I think you feel really good about the top line. Like you said, our Mason Thomas is a all SEC caliber, guy who he puts it all together like he did last year, could be an All-American candidate. And then Marvin Jones Jr., former 5-star guy, has bounced around a little bit, started at Georgia, then was most recently at Florida State. And look, Florida State was bad last year, but he was a good component on that defense. Like he was productive, but not like an all-star by any means. But he is a solid guy who obviously has the skill set, has the potential, given just his 5-star status coming out of high school. He's been relatively productive at the college level, and Oklahoma feels like it can get a little bit more out of him in this system. So I think with those two, you feel really good. And really the wild card is just whether, PJ Adebawore, takes that next step. We saw flashes of it, particularly during his freshman season. This past season, not as much, but it's like, can he put it together and be that, 5-star terror off the edge that, they thought he could be coming out of high school? Because look, he has the skill set. It's just a lot of raw ability that needed to be kind of crafted and honed, and whether they can, get him to be shaped into that, rotational piece that they kind of need to rely on, because look, they're going to need 4 or 5 guys in that rotation off the defensive end and edge. So we'll see what happens there. But I think you feel really good about those top 2 for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's top heavy right now, and that may be a dangerous place to be when you see like the injury luck Oklahoma's had over the past couple of years. But like you guys saying, PJ is the one that has to take the next step, and I want to like point it to like where I was in high school, like when you got to go from a sophomore to a junior and you get more responsibility. I feel like that's what's happening for PJ here. Like his mind shift, I think is going to change here. Like he's going to take on more responsibility. That's going to help him shape out what he needs to do, because that added pressure now makes you get even better. Like you have those 2 guys in front of you, you're thinking, all right, I got a little bit more time. I can focus on just a little bitty thing. Now it's time. Like he has to make the move. And so I think we'll see that from PJ just because of that. Like when you see that type of situation, and then you got like guys like Danny Okoye, who was his name was getting thrown around a little bit here and there throughout the season, especially in the bowl game. Brent Venables said he got out there a little bit more. So somebody like that, can he step up and be out there a little bit for you to get you over some humps there? That's where I want to see it at. But I think, like you guys said, PJ is where it needs to start for him right here.
Yeah, I love the Marvin Jones addition. R. Mason Thomas, he got a chance, I would think, to be like a first-round draft pick type of guy. I mean, the way that he can just take over games, if he can find a way to put that together more consistently, because we would see that over the course of the season where he'd go on a stretch where it was just he's just completely dominating by himself, basically. Now, nobody's expecting him to do that all the time. That's ridiculous. But, if he can become a more consistently dominant pass rusher like that, I mean, he's in the mix for the best player on the team, maybe. I mean, regardless of position, offense, defense, just period. I love Danny Okoye. I've talked about that before. I think he's ready, hopefully, to make a big leap and be a contributor for you. But, yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying. A lot of it falls on PJ Adebawore. I mean, this room, if PJ is a guy and is anywhere close to that 5-star prospect, freak of nature, alien that he looks like he could be and we all hoped and expected him to be, then this room looks vastly different. So it's not all on him by any means, but he really changes the overall look and depth if he's anywhere close to, again, what we kind of all put on him coming out of high school. So it's an interesting group.
And I don't think you need him to be a superstar right now.
No.
But if he could be like a solid guy, like an Ethan Downs, where he's getting 4 or 5 sacks a season, getting 20 plus pressures, like that is obviously going to boost what they can do along that defensive line, because what R. Mason Thomas brings to the table. What kind of talent Marvin Jones Jr. has. What those guys on the interior that we talked about already bring to it too. So you just need someone to kind of complement it and round it out, because you're not going to, defensive linemen are big dudes. They're not all playing 60 snaps a game.
Right. A few other year 2 guys too. Wyatt Gilmore, Taylor Wine is someone that, is a name that comes up often. Nigel Smith still floating around. He could go inside or outside. So the depth is there. You need a few guys to kind of step up, but at the top, you're at an elite level with R. Mason and Marvin Jones. We'll do linebackers next week. Then we'll go to the secondary, winding down. I got a few left. Spring practice is coming up. It's kind of getting to that time of year. We're getting ever so close to spring ball. Get to see some of these new guys. Looking forward to it. As far as some other football stuff, one other quick thing. Scouting Combine invites came out late last week. 3 OU guys, which is a pretty low number by OU standards. But obviously, as we talk about the entire offseason, they retained the vast amount of their defense. So that's going to obviously limit how many guys you have in the NFL draft. And then offensively, it was just a mess. You're not going to have a lot of guys really making that jump. The 3 are the usual suspects: Ethan Downs, Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman. Quickly, guys, for you, just I guess, is there one guy in particular of this group that stands out as that's the biggest for him that week in Indy? Or, I guess, what are you watching for with those 3?
Yeah, man, I think Danny and Billy, obviously the 2 guys that are kind of been the stars of that defense. Billy really showed out at the Senior Bowl a few weeks back. So I think he's going to test well and has a chance to really improve his stock. Danny, like we know what he can do production wise. I'm curious to see, just how he tests and how he stacks up in what's a pretty good linebacker class. I am surprised that there weren't maybe a couple other guys that got some invites. Whether it's a Dejon Terry or a Woody Washington or something like that. So those guys will have to kind of lean on their pro days next month and to kind of prove themselves. But yeah, you said only 3 guys. Second year in a row, I believe that's 3 guys. Last year it was all offensive linemen. This year it's all defensive guys. So we'll see how things shake out for those guys.
Yeah, I think Danny Stetson's kind of already solidified himself in terms of what he's going to be. I think a lot of scouts have known that. Billy Bowman, obviously, like you said, I think he's going to test well, so those numbers are going to come up. So I think Ethan Downs, it's the biggest deal for him just to really prove where he's at. Like you guys said, he had a couple of sacks here and there throughout his seasons, but you really want to show that he can be a guy at the next level. And I think he'll have the biggest reach to do that in terms of, and I think he can. It's not like I don't believe he can, but I think this is the biggest moment for him in terms of those 3 guys that we're talking about with OU.
Yeah, I think Downs has probably got the most upward mobility trajectory from the combine. He can make the most gains for himself of the 3 of them. Like Tom said, Billy had a really good week at the Senior Bowl. Hopefully Danny's healthy. He wasn't able to participate in the Senior Bowl. He was invited, but obviously was held out of the week, and obviously the game itself with some injury stuff. So hopefully he's healthy and good to go for Indianapolis whenever we get there. But we'll see how these 3 guys do. All will be drafted, obviously, and the pro day is kind of where the shift goes, like Tom said, for other guys like Dejon Terry and Woody Washington, among some others. So we'll keep an eye on that whenever we get there. Here coming up in just, I think, a couple of weeks or so for the scouting combine. Let's shift over to some other sports. So we'll start with the basketball as we typically do. Let's go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off with the men first, and we get to some good stuff, some happier stuff. It's awful. It's awful. It's a disaster. It's everything that we feared it would be. Whenever they were 13-0, and we all were on this show and we were saying they're playing well, they look legitimately good. Jeremiah Fears a lottery pick. But let's wait till SEC play till we get real excited. This is what it, everyone was fearful of happening. The wheels have fallen off. It's a spiral. The LSU game on Saturday, if you somehow missed it, first off, congrats to you. Watch that. But they led by 5 with 23 seconds left, 24 seconds left.
Yeah.
LSU is one of the worst teams in the SEC. Oklahoma was at home, and just a meltdown of historic proportions. They blow the lead. They lose. Could they still make the tournament? Literally, yes, obviously. There's still 6 games to go. They have big games left on the schedule, but it's hard to see any path to winning 3 or 4 more games with the way they're playing right now. Tom, it's all bad. I mean, it's a nightmare. Porter Moser's seat is inarguably getting warm. It just is. It always is awkward to talk about guys' job status. I never like doing that, but it's inarguable that it's not. I mean, it's at that point. I think the fan base has completely turned. For you, Tom, your thoughts coming out of the LNC on Saturday, and is there any hope at all of saving this season? Because it feels like no. But what about for you?
Saturday was calamitous. I think that's a good word to describe it.
That ending was unbelievable. I can't believe that.
After Jalen Moore hit 2 free throws with 35 seconds left to put them up 5, they had a 93% win probability. And then to blow that game in that situation after that is just inexcusable. Look, to their credit, they had not had any losses to teams that they should have beaten to that point. Obviously, the blowout losses to Auburn, to Tennessee, to Missouri were all ugly games. But Oklahoma wasn't supposed to win those games. Missouri, you would have liked to be more competitive. Auburn and Tennessee, those are top tier teams in the country. You know you're gonna have a hard time with those teams. The Missouri game was concerning. But then to lose to an LSU team that was 1-10 in SEC play, had lost 7 straight, was a 500 team on the season, and lose it in the fashion that you did is just inexcusable. Oklahoma led for 35 minutes of that game, almost the entire second half. Again, blowing a 5-point lead with 25 seconds left. I think the most concerning thing isn't just that they blew that lead somehow. It's that during that collapse, it was your best players that were letting them down. It's okay, Jalen Moore hit those 2 free throws, but then he fouls Cam Carter on a 3-point play or on a 3-pointer, makes it a 4-point play, make it a one-point game with 20 seconds left. And then, they inbound in and Jalen gets trapped in front of the LSU bench and kind of just throws it in a no man's land and they turn it over. And then Duke Miles fouls Cam Carter on the N1 there to put LSU ahead with 8 seconds left. And then Jeremiah Fears, look, that's who you want the ball in their hands in that point, but he just kind of lost his footing and kind of had an off-balance shot there to try to tie it, and then has to foul to try to keep the game alive. And look, it was all bad, like you said. I cannot believe that Oklahoma blew that game. It's still such a head scratcher. They are firmly on the bubble. Like, they are on that cut line right now, just about. They're either one of the last teams in or the first teams out. And that's where they've been 2 of the last 3 years under Porter Moser. And that's where they cannot afford to be right now. The good news, if there is any, is that, like Porter said after the game, there's opportunity. There's 6 games left, but all 6 right now are quad 1 opportunities. The next 5 are against teams ranked in the top 25. Is it easy by any means? No, not at all. But if Oklahoma can somehow regroup and win a few of these games, then
they'll be in probably.
Yeah, that strengthens the resume again. Because again, the LSU loss, it's their first loss outside of quad 2 this season. Like, all their losses were quad 1 and quad 2. The LSU one is their first quad 3 loss, so it's their only bad loss on the resume. So there's still a chance to prove themselves. It's just the question is, like, after losing 3 blowouts like that, and then losing to a bad LSU team in the manner that they did, like, does this team have it in them to regroup and recover and kind of pick itself off the mat? And right now, I don't know, because look, it's not going to get any easier. Tomorrow they're going down to Florida, and Florida is a very, very good team right now. I just don't know how they're going to recover. And if they don't, I mean, they're going to have some tough questions to ask. Like you said, Porter Moser feels like his seat's getting warm. His buyout is like $7.5 million. Not sure the exact figure. I just got the contract this morning, like a lot of people did. So I'll go through that later today. But like, that's a $7.5 million buyout. I know it's not all due up front, but it's like, is that worth making a change for Oklahoma when the program has kind of stagnated the way it has the last few years?
Yeah, to your point, they had found a way when the chips were really down and we got to those points that it was like, you can't lose this one. You can't. They had answered the bell to this point in the season. South Carolina comes to mind. The Vanderbilt game they played, maybe their best game of the year, beat Vanderbilt by 30. Vanderbilt turned around and almost beat Tennessee this weekend. Like, that was a really impressive showing. But they just, I mean, again, just a meltdown at the end of this game to blow it. And they didn't really play well before. The LSU is not any good. And, even down the stretch, it was when it looked like they were going to win. My thought process was, looks like they're going to get through this and they're going to win it. So they're going to keep the hope alive. But this was not an overly encouraging game.
No.
And then you blow it anyway and you lose. It's all bad. And like we said, the same conversation we're having with Brent Venables right now, going to year 4. We talk about this is a make or break year for Brent. It's the same for Porter this year, make or break. I mean, we all kind of knew that, right? And there's still some work to be done. It's not over. It looks extremely bleak. There's no reason to have a lot of hope, but it's not literally over because, like you said, the opportunities are there. They could still certainly make the tournament. Again, literally, I don't expect them to because I don't see how they're going to win enough games to do it. But this was bad. This was as bad of a loss in the Porter Moser era, and frankly, and some big picture questions are coming for that basketball program right now. And then it feels like change is coming. If barring a miracle, it feels like change is coming. That was an all-time black eye game right there.
Didn't Porter say they weren't like they were like in a no jump situation or something like that? I thought I heard it on the press conference.
Yeah, on the 4-point play.
So so the team is just not listening to him. Is it?
I don't think it's that they're listening to him. I think it's just mental lapses. Like it's basketball 101. Like in that situation, like you're up 5 late. Like let them shoot a 3. A 3 isn't going to hurt you. A 4-point play is though. Like you're instinctively, obviously, like you want to contest the shot, but you have to know like it's about situational awareness.
Yeah,
and they just lapsed right there. Not just on that no jump situation, but on the ensuing inbound. Like, okay, they knew what they wanted to do coming in. Like, they got the ball to Jalen, but then the three guards just kind of like converged on the same area, and it just made it a mess in no man's land. And it's like, okay, you wait a couple beats to see if they're going to foul you, and then they're not going to foul you. You have to make the play to get that ball across half court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so sometimes, like, yeah, that's what it seems like to me. Like, sometimes the players are making the wrong moves, and I know it's the coach. It falls on the coach every single time, because like, did you recruit the wrong guy that's not going to play your system correctly? I mean, like, all those things play a factor in it, because I know Porter Moses is getting a lot of heat for this, and I kind of wonder sometimes what's going on with the players. Are they just not listening, or because from the outside looking in, it doesn't make sense what's going on, because OU has the talent. I mean, to be competitive, at least, and not being competitive. They're getting blown out in some of these games. And then this LSU game is pretty bad, because you should beat that team. So, like, it doesn't really make sense. I know you guys don't have the answers either, but just kind of like point it all out there.
No, I mean, it's the big picture questions of, does Oklahoma basketball have the resources to compete? All the NIL, I mean, it's a big picture question, but at the end of the day, 5-point lead at home against LSU, got to win. Got to win that game. I mean, I forget everything else for that moment. You have to win that. You can't blow a 5-point lead at home with 20 seconds left, So I don't know. It's we'll see what happens. There's a reason everyone's looking into Porter Moser buyout things today. I mean, it's that's where we're at, and it's unfortunate, because I don't think it's all Porter's fault. But, if you go 4 years of this, it's kind of hard to argue against at least trying to change something up, right? I mean, so we'll see what happens over the last 6 games. Porter is a psychopath, and I mean that in a good way, in that he probably didn't leave the LNC till 4 a.m. after that game, grinding tape and stuff, because that's how he is. He's gonna do everything he possibly can to try and save it, but I don't know if it can be saved. We'll see. Rough one, like Tom said, at number 3 Florida tomorrow in Gainesville. Oh my God, could be bad. Could be very bad. Mm-hmm. Over on the women's side, James, they're playing well. 3 straight wins. We kind of talked about it, on last week's show, that the schedule was going to lighten up, and there was a question of, did they miss all their big opportunities to get a top 16 seed and to get to host the first 2 rounds of the tournament? Well, the committee came out with the top 16. Oklahoma was 15 in it.
Yep.
So clearly to that point, they had decided they had done enough. The rest of their schedule is really manageable. They won again yesterday against Missouri on the road. They won 3 in a row. They have 4 games left. And again, they're going to be solid favorites, I would say, in all of them. A couple of more difficult games, but they're both at home. Feels like, they're in pretty good shape. I don't think they have a lot of margin for error to get that top 16, but feels like you can kind of see the path to it, when I don't know if that was totally clear like a week or 2 ago. Feels like things are kind of turning around. And they were down yesterday at halftime and ended up just winning, going away. Mm-hmm. Your assessment, kind of where they're at right now? It feels like they're kind of finding their footing again these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think that was the big case, because you got Reagan Beers back. She missed the last 2 games, and that was a big, question mark. What's going on with her? How can the team handle it? And they came back, and she came back in, and they did really well. 5 different scores were in double figures in this contest yesterday. So it was like really good outing from them overall. They're playing well right now in terms of not turning the ball over, because they only had 13. I know that's still maybe a lot for people, but that's a lot better than 20 to 25 like they've been having in SEC play. That helps out a lot too. And that's what Jenny Baranczyk was pretty much going on about. And like, she came to us and told us, like, I don't know what to do with this team if they're just going to not do what's going to make us win, because we find things that work and then we don't continue to do that. And I think that maybe spoke to the players here, because this last game, it got a lot better. It got a lot better for them, and you saw some really good things out of all of them. So Sahara Williams was crashing the boards like crazy. Had 4 offensive rebounds, and all of her points seemed to come off of those offensive rebounds, just putting them back up. And those are big momentum shifts for OU, because they had to come back, like you said. That second quarter was rough for them. I mean, it just, they couldn't miss. And so they had to fight back from that, and to really regain that lead and then win big. It shows a really good fight from this team. So it's good to see where they're at right now.
Yeah, no, they're playing well, taking care of business in these games that they should win. And like I said, the rest of the schedule is pretty manageable. I mean, they have Alabama at home, who's they were ranked. Are they ranked in the new poll? I think they are, coming up in the season finale. But you're going to be a solid favorite the rest of the way. And obviously, if they keep winning, they'll be a top 16. I mean, obviously they're not going to fall down after winning. So if you get that top 16, you get those first 2 rounds at home. That's something that they had in Jenny's first year, but they haven't been able to have since then. And so that's a huge plus, obviously, to try and get to that second weekend, which they haven't been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess it's a different conversation for the women because they're on the bubble of hosting, and the men are on the bubble of making the tournament. So that's kind of the situation the women are in right now. Because I mean, they had their rough patch as well in the SEC, but they just come along here lately. Now they're 7-5 in the conference. Won 19 games overall, so they're doing pretty good. And you're seeing. Maybe this is the final turn. Like, you didn't want it to happen this late in the season for everything to start clicking for this team, but maybe they finally found what makes them go really well. And so that's where we're at right now.
Vanderbilt at home on Thursday night, and then they go to Fayetteville on Sunday. Arkansas is having a rough year. They only have 9 wins right now. So if you take care of business on Thursday, you would hope you get a road win on Sunday, and then we'll kind of reevaluate where things are in a week. But kind of, again, find their footing. Path forward is apparent. SEC tournament will still probably be big, but things to like right now with the way Jenny B's team is playing. All right, I think that's it for this portion of the show. We'll let Tom hop out, and James and I will do some diamond sports, softball and baseball, both with really dominant weekends. So we'll recap that. Tom, appreciate you as always. I'll see you when I see you. I guess maybe the LNC this weekend. Should be just a packed house for Mississippi State on Saturday. Can't wait.
Packed house. Later, guys.
All right, we now shift to the diamond sports portion of the program. I cover baseball. James covers softball. Wrap up the weekends that were for those two teams. We'll start with softball, James. They went down to Waco and just dropped the hammer. Obviously, you expect that against Hofstra, right? Hofstra is a very small program. That's not someone that you'd expect would be able to really compete with Oklahoma. But Baylor in the top 25 going into the weekend, and OU just crushed them twice in their ballpark. Obviously, it was Baylor's home tournament. They've now gone to 10-0. They had another perfect game yesterday. They're run ruling everyone. Feels like after it's still mega early, but it feels like maybe after a little bit of kind of a feeling out the new squad, they're kind of starting to take off here. And it's still, again, very early. The schedule's going to get much tougher, but this was a really dominant and impressive weekend for that team down in Waco, I thought. What was your kind of assessment?
And that's the thing. We knew the schedule was a little bit light here, but if you start winning games like this, like the last year's team was doing, where they're run ruling teams that really shouldn't be on the field with them, that's where you're like, okay, this team actually is, could be that good as well.
Right.
Ella Parker is I think the best player in the country right now. She's just seeing the ball so well. I went and looked up her numbers. I got it pulled up here. Well, now I can't find her. But OU's at 19 home runs this year overall, which is one of the things we thought they weren't going to do this year. They have 2 pitchers, Sam Landry and Isabella Smith, that have thrown perfect games in back-to-back weeks. That's unreal. That's not something that should happen at this point in time. And like I said, you got Ella Parker, who's just seeing the ball the best as anybody in the country. She was 8 for 9 over the weekend. It was incredible what she did. They had to start intentionally walking her, Josh. It was that type of situation. It's you can't keep letting her beat you, because Abby Dayton was getting on relentlessly with walks and singles, and then you get Ella Parker come up there and just knocks her in. It was just it was guaranteed pretty much throughout the entire weekend. And so that changed a lot of things for them. But then when you add that in, Cindy Barker comes in, a freshman who you don't really have any information on as an opposing team. She comes in and just has a great outing in her 2 opportunities that she's come on the field. It's been incredible from this team overall. There's been so many different pieces that have stepped up and done really well. You got Nelly going out there playing well defensively. You got Gabby Garcia playing well defensively. I mean, there's different moments here and there. Cassidy Pickering, who didn't have the best outing at the plate overall this weekend, but just you could see that her impact was on the game as well, because you always have to think about her because she's a dangerous hitter. All those things come up and hurt you. And so it's ridiculous. I mean, and now I found Ella Parker's stats. She's hitting. Let's see. Oh, they don't have BPI on there. Well, that's so what. All right, here we go. I was gonna try to pull it up and be smart here, but I can't do that. So
you're good.
Well, she's playing outstanding. Just know that. Go back and I'll have it wrote down. Yeah, and things like that. But it's great from what OU softball is doing right now. It's just overall great.
No, dominant weekend. And Baylor has obviously been a team that has beat them in the past. And again, they have so few losses these last several years that, the ones they do have kind of stick out in your mind. You kind of remember them. and Baylor got them right a couple years ago. And so you kind of thought this might be kind of tough. New team going on the road. Baylor's a good program. They're ranked. It's their ballpark, on the road. And to just flatten them twice, I thought was really impressive. And now you're 10-0. As you come home this week, not the best week to be playing outside in Oklahoma. It's freezing this week. So hopefully the schedule doesn't get impacted too much. We'll see if it does at all. But they've got a bunch of home games this week. They are at home Thursday afternoon, Abilene Christian and Wichita State.
We'll see.
That.
Yeah, we'll see on that with the
weather. They got Friday afternoon against Abilene Christian. They got Saturday against Bowling Green, and they got Sunday against Tulsa. So a ton of games at home at Love's Field. First home games of the year for this team. We'll see, if they can get them all in, hopefully, and all that. But again, we knew coming into the year, like you said, the schedule's a little bit lighter than normal. They don't have that merge row at the start of the year that they've had sometimes in the past. There's going to be a little bit of a feeling out process. But it feels like that was the right move because it feels like they've worked out some kinks. It's only 10 games and a long season, many more to go, but they're playing really well right now, and they get to come home this week, so you'll get a chance to see them with your own two eyes this week, and it'll be fun. I'm sure anything you're looking forward to this week with getting to see them at home finally.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like all the newcomers were talking about it and the freshmen talking about it. They want to experience that Oklahoma crowd. So, hopefully the weather is great to where the fans can actually come out and support this team and give them that experience they're really, looking for. Because
by the weekend, I think it'll be all right.
Yeah,
Thursday, Friday might be tough, though.
Yeah, they've been playing well enough to get that type of crowd. I think it's just been 4 straight run rule wins, 2 against a ranked team and a team that beat them when they won 61 games the 2 years ago. So it's one of those things it looks pretty good right now. And I know we've seen this from each sport. They've done really well in a non-conference setting. Right now, they look really, really good. So I won't go any further than that. But man, they look like they could be. So we'll see.
I've got a high of 25 and a low of 5 on Thursday. Friday, 35, low of 11.
That's not
Saturday
good.
and Sunday are a little more manageable. Sunday looks like it's actually going to be kind of nice. But Thursday, Friday might be a little bit of a challenge. They might have to alter some schedule, but we'll see. But great start for them, obviously, and we'll see what they can do at home this weekend. As far as the other Diamond Sport, baseball opened up at home against Lehigh. I was there for all 3 games of this series. Great start. Great start. I mean, obviously, I don't think Lehigh is anything spectacular. Okay, so I want to make sure I say that right off the top. Obviously, the schedule is going to get really, really tough, and they have a big weekend coming up in a tournament down Round Rock. But it was a great opening weekend. The questions coming in were, are they going to have enough offense with all the guys they had to replace? Last year, while again, I don't think Lehigh is anything spectacular. Lehigh last year was a pretty good pitching team. Their team ERA was pretty good. It was top 80 in college baseball, which there's 300 teams. So they were a decent pitching team a year ago. And OU just smashed the ball all over the yard all weekend. Even though it was cold and windy, they still found a way to drive the ball out of the ballpark. Easton Carmichael had 2 home runs. Jackson Willits homer, Dayton Taki homer. They got 2 run rules, which is, run rules aren't as common in baseball as softball. You got to really drub someone to get a 10 after 7 run rule. And they did it twice. So you feel good about what you did offensively. And then on the mound, it was great. It was great. Everyone who came in looked fantastic. The starting rotation, which we talked about, that's the headline that everyone's excited about. The rotation. Look, obviously they're going to face much better offensive teams, but no matter who you're facing, every single guy could throw 98, 99. That's nice. That'll translate no matter who you're playing. Kyson Witherspoon, I thought, looked great. Cam Johnson, I thought, looked really solid as well. Kate Carlson came out of the bullpen and looked great. Malachi Witherspoon on Saturday pitched really well. Also, again, pretty much everyone who came out of the pen also looked pretty sharp. We didn't even see everyone because the game's being shorter with the run rules and everything, but really good opening weekend. Not really anything negative to take away at all. I mean, you pitched, you had some good defensive plays mixed in there. You did what you should do and you would hope you would do against an inferior opponent at home. They just demolished them. It was never competitive. We'll see what they do this week. It gets a lot tougher. They get UT Arlington on Wednesday, but then they go to Round Rock for the weekend. Minnesota Friday, Oregon State Saturday, Virginia Sunday. Oregon State and Virginia are both top 10, top 15 level teams and programs. So we're going to learn a lot more about this team this coming weekend. Some major resume boosters available, but it was a really good opening weekend. I don't want to overreact too much to, again, 3 games against the Patriot League, but It was great. It was really good. And again, certain things you can just kind of tell it's going to translate. And I thought the pitching, especially, again, every guy's throwing 98, 99. That makes you feel good.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Like, is it pitching at your expectation, above your expectation of what you thought going in? Like,
yeah,
where are you seeing them right now? Because, like you said, a bunch of different guys throwing above, 90s up there. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, Tyson, I thought looked fantastic on Friday. Which again, he's a top 10 draft prospect and all. I mean, there's a reason for that. I thought he looked spectacular. He was really mixing in his breaking pitches. Malachi also on Saturday looked very, very sharp as well. Cam Johnson was really good. He's got to obviously work on. He had 5 walks. That'll be the thing that'll burn you. So you got to find a way to reel that in. That's going to be an interesting conversation. I think the early part of this season is that whole Cade Crossland versus Cam Johnson on Sundays thing. Cam Johnson got the job and he looked good. I don't want to make it sound like he didn't pitch well, but he had the 5 walks and Cade Crossland came in relief of him and looked awesome as well. Yeah. So is there going to be any fluidity there? Because I think the 2 Witherspoon brothers are pretty set in stone. So that 3rd spot in the rotation, how does that work? Who gets the start in the midweek? We didn't see Jacob Golston all this weekend. Is he going to maybe get the midweek? So there's still some questions, but one weekend in, the pitching looked really, really great. Everyone can throw hard. It was mixing in their breaking pitches really well. It was good, and the offense was just smashing the ball all over the place. Again, you kind of thought it's so cold and windy, might not have a lot of power this weekend, but Easton Carmichael, a couple of homers, Willett's a homer. I mean, the fact they're able to drive the ball all over the yard despite the poor weather, I thought was pretty encouraging. And Easton Carmichael's going to have a monster year. Something we already knew, but that guy can just flat out rake.
Yeah,
so it's fun to watch him.
We didn't bring him up last time, but Taylor Tatum, any sighting of him? Did he get on the field at all?
Well, but Skip said at the media day that Taylor Tatum he tweaked something in camp. I can't remember if he said it was on his leg. I can't remember if he said knee or ankle or what. I wouldn't expect to see much of Taylor Tatum this season. That's just my personal expectation. Obviously, he wasn't around in the fall because he's with the football team. They have a lot of outfielders, so I don't anticipate seeing a lot of Taylor Tatum. Skip likes to work guys in on the midweek games, especially. So we'll see maybe this coming up on Wednesday night against UT Arlington if he gets worked in at all. But I think, again, they said that he tweaked something in fall camp, so he may not even be 100% right now. So, or in spring camp. So we'll see as the season goes on. But I know fans are itching to see him. I saw him; he was milling around in the bullpen. He was there. He's there in the baseball uni, but nothing yet. But great opening weekend. We'll see what they do. Like I said, really big weekend in Round Rock. That Oregon State and Virginia game. Those teams are legit Omaha teams. So you go. It's mega early and it's one game, but if you can win 1 or 2 of those, I mean, you're feeling really good about where you sit early part of the season. So,
and I know we're on the baseball segment, but Taylor Tatum reminded me, Hannah Core, she's with the team right now. Obviously, she's doing a little bit better. She rolled her ankle rounding the bases in that first weekend, so she's been in the boot, but I think she's doing a little bit better here. Haven't seen her on the field just yet, but wanted to give that update from what I've noticed so far.
You bet. No, it was a great weekend pitching. I'm thinking, Cade Crossland, Jason Bowden, Texas A&M transfer, came in and pitched really well. Gavin Jones, who's a 2-way player, came and threw a 1-2-3 inning and then got a 2-run single in the bottom half of the inning. That was pretty cool. You don't get a ton of 2-way. I mean, you get more in college than obviously you do in the MLB. You hardly ever get it in MLB. But for his first inning as an OU Sooner, to throw a 1-2-3 inning and then to come in the bottom half and get a 2-run single, that's pretty cool. So, yeah, a lot to like. Pretty much all positive for baseball this weekend.
Did Skip mess with the lineup? I mean, was it fairly consistent? Did he
tinkered with it? The top 3, Jason Walk, Jackson Willett, Easton Carmichael, that's your 1-2-3. That's not going to change. Okay. That you can lock that in. After that, he was playing around with it. We saw some Sam Christensen in right field over Brandon Kane, although Brandon Kane did play this weekend. Dayton Taki kind of moved up. He was cleanup, then he was batting 6th and 7th. So I think there is some fluidity there. You saw Scott Muddler kind of move around. They're going to move around and kind of find the pieces they like, kind of 4 through 9. But 1, 2, 3, Willets, Walk, Willets, Carmichael, the 3 guys back from last year. That's your 1, 2, 3, and they all had great weekends too. Jason Walk lived on base this weekend. He's so fast that he just creates mayhem when he's out there. So really good weekend for the returning guys as well. All right, I think that's it. More to come, obviously. Softball, like we said, is back on this weekend. Baseball's on the road all week. We'll have Full coverage over on the website, oklahoma.247sports.com, UT Arlington on Wednesday, and then the Round Rock Classic Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Some big games there. Looking forward to that. Obviously, hoops coverage continuing as well. Women's hoops, men's hoops. We'll bring you all the latest in football. Also, as always, back on Thursday, Colin Kenny's going to be with me. He was down in Dallas for Under Armour Dallas over the weekend. A lot of recruiting notes coming out of that. We'll break that all down with him. Also, probably have the debut of Blake and Koviak on the show, I think. He was with Colin down there for that as well. So we'll get his thoughts from that busy weekend and wrap up the latest there. We'll be back next week with Tom, James, and myself next Monday to recap all the latest and all the other sports in a very busy time of year for OU sports. Subscribe, Oklahoma.247sports.com, Sooners Illustrated, tons of covers there, more to come. That's it for now. For Tom Green earlier, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway signing off for now. We'll see you next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.